Welcome to the Histories of Northamptonshire podcast series, and this episode number 49. Recorded on location, each episode tells the story of one of the many and varied objects which are the focus of the exhibition A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects. The exhibition runs at the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery between the 20th of September 2025 and February 2026. Selected by local individuals, heritage groups and the museum's own curators, each object tells a different story from the county's past. Now, for this edition of the podcast series, I've come out into the rolling Northamptonshire countryside, a place that is populated by farms and wind farms. We're not too far away from fast roads, we're not too far away from the Grand Union Canal, but we're in the countryside, and that is an important part of what we're about to discuss. And I have two gentlemen who are my guests for the next 15 minutes or so, and they are
Bill Wright, and I'm chairman of the Welford and Sulby Historical Society.
I'm David Vaughan. My father found the cup in Welford.
Bill, what cup are we talking about?
We're talking about the Welford Cup, a silver grace cup, which would have been handed around the table after saying grace in a wealthy family. Made in 1518, so a Tudor artefact.
David, your relative found this particular item. Just how big is it?
It's about 4.5 inches tall and roughly 4.5 inches diameter at its widest.
Now, it's called the Welford Cup.
Yes, it was found on a bridleway or a footpath on the edge of Welford in 1968 in a field. My father was an agricultural contractor building a new fence on home farm in Welford. And during the work with his brother, they used an auger to make the holes for the fence posts to go in. One morning they found, with the auger, they thought a piece of old iron. When they looked at it, knocked the muck off it, it was a cup. They didn't know then that it was made of silver, but it was found probably about 2 feet in the ground. But I saw it for the first time that evening, after my mother had washed it, and it looked scruffy, but I could see there was fine, very fine detail on it. So we knew it was something a bit different, a bit special.
Now, it's called the Welford Cup. Is it simply because it was found in the Welford area?
Yes,
or can you actually trace its history back to the village of Welford?
Not directly, no. There's a number of theories of why it was found in Welford, where it was found in Welford, and the distance it was from the village.
And it was clearly buried. It was low enough down for it not to have just got there by accident. So someone buried it for some reason. Its location is fairly close to Sulby Abbey. The abbey was dissolved in 1500s by Henry VIII. Could it have been hidden by the monks who were trying to keep their booty for themselves or whatever? Or we're very close to the site of the Battle of Naseby. So in 1645, were the local families hiding their goods from the armies who were visiting? Or was it as a result of, Charles I having lost the battle, could this have been from his caravan train? And was it buried by a soldier who was hoping to come back but never did?
Could this actually have been a trophy of theft?
It could well have been.
What investigations have you been able to do to try and run its origin to ground, and perhaps what its origin might have been? Because it might not have been from Northamptonshire at all.
It would have certainly been owned by a wealthy family or by the abbey. And we know that it was made in London in 1518. We believe it was made by Robert Amadas, who was the king's goldsmith, Henry VIII's goldsmith. Could it have arrived in Welford via a gift from the king to a wealthy family? Or there is another theory, which is that his daughter Elizabeth I, during one of her progresses in the summer, leaving London and travelling around to wealthy families and lords and ladies, could it have been part of her retinue? She certainly stayed, we believe, at the Bull's Head in Welford, which was a famous coaching inn. Could that have been stolen from her belongings as well and buried? But these are all speculations. We have no proof of those.
Well, precisely. You've just instanced about a dozen questions, none of which have answers, other than it was found in Welford. And I will make the point, we are in Welford. David, what was the reaction of the family when this Grace Cup, the Welford Cup as it has become known, what was the reaction of the family when it was turned up?
Well, my dad was a real countryman, But he was he was also very bright. Went to grammar school, but had to come home when he was 15 to run the family business, which was steam engines used for threshing. But he was a well-educated man and had a very broad opinion of a lot of things in the countryside. So he was full of it. He straight away says he's got to go to a museum to get some advice. Off he went. We've got cuttings from the local newspaper where he was talking to a local antiques dealer in Market Harborough who referred him to Leicester Museum, and eventually it ended up at the British Museum.
Was there any question over who owned the cup? Bill has already referenced that it could be the monarch of the day, royalty or a nobleman. Did you make any investigations?
No, the family didn't at all. My dad was interested in why it was there and what it was and why it was there. He never got any real answers from that. He was busy running a business on his own, and it was just a minutiae of life. And coincidentally, my wife and I got married a couple of months after this was found, so the family were a bit sidetracked in doing the first wedding in the family for a number of years.
Bill, you're the chair of the Welford and Selby Historical Society. This must be a prized object. There are other objects within the exhibition which don't reside in Northamptonshire because they've gone off to museums elsewhere. From the Society's point of view, wouldn't you like it a little bit closer to home?
That's precisely really why I put this object forward, because David's been to see it at the British Museum, and I have, but very few other people from the village have gone to that trouble. And it would be so fantastic for it to be that much closer for people to see it in person. When it was discovered, I was 7 years old, and this was the talking point for years. We are in the middle of nowhere, to be fair.
It's interesting you should say that, because I think very much the same emotion is expressed by the people of Desborough for some of their historic finds. This cup, it still has relevance to the people of the village. There's a stakeholder emotional connection to it.
Yes, there is. And I also think it connects people to, we are a small community on the edges of the county, on the borders with Leicestershire, but this connects us with national history. So it's kings and queens, or decisions that very rich people are making, and it allows people to connect with those things, which is fabulous, I think.
Is there any evidence of the cup having been used? Sometimes, and with other artefacts, I've spoken to experts who say, well, we don't know whether it just had a ceremonial role or whether it had a day-to-day functional role. Is there any evidence to lean one way or the other with Welford Cup?
No, and I think that's partly down to the fact that it was in a very damaged condition once the auger had done its business on it, but it has been completely restored by the British Museum. It's in kind of perfect condition. It would be quite difficult to tell. It is worth saying that there is a potential that part of it is missing.
Yes, my father was informed by, I presume, the British Museum that there should be a cover for this cup. He and his brother spent some weeks digging around where they found it to see if they could find this lid, but to no avail.
That almost has a religious overtone, doesn't it?
It does, but they were also used in the saying of grace round a large baronial table.
David, let me ask you the question as the son of the man who found it. Do you have an emotional reaction to it?
No, not particularly, no. I'm a village boy, born and bred, and appreciate, I think, more about the way my dad found it and the way he acted afterwards. He was very into the countryside and people. Personally, got no real feeling for the cup one way or the other.
Bill, how about you? You seem to have a kind of emotional reaction to it in telling me the story.
I think it's a really important piece of Welford history, and it just at the moment sits a bit far away from us. And I hope this brings people a bit closer to it by being at the Northampton Museum.
What does this cup say about Northamptonshire and perhaps the era from when it was manufactured and indeed the era from when it was then lost until David's family turned it up?
I think it says something about that. You could easily think that Northamptonshire is just another of those counties, across the country. But at certain times we have been integral. We've been the people that have been making the history ourselves, and we've been involved in it right as far away from things as a little village that we are in the county. What interests me a lot about the Cup is it tells a potential story about Northamptonshire being at the heart of things.
Shiny things taken from the ground, but which have a relevance to not only the place where the item was found, but the people who now live in the area, and indeed then lived in the area as well. A piece of Northamptonshire, whatever the origins of the Welford Cup. Bill, David, thank you for telling me the story today.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Histories of Northamptonshire podcast. If you would like to find out more about the objects or listen to other episodes in the series, go to www.northamptonmuseums.com. Alternatively, you can visit the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery, where you can see the A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects exhibition for yourself. The Histories of Northamptonshire project is funded by Arts Council England as part of the National Portfolio Programme.